Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jocular Junction. My name is Jordan with Silent PH in the middle. Today, we're going to talk about tabletop news and a lot of monsters. We're going to talk about a lot of monsters. This show is sponsored to you, or brought to you, I should say, by wonderful patrons over on patreon.com/Jordan with PH in the middle, JORPHDAN. You can check out there for more information and for sponsoring content like this, or becoming a YouTube member is also awesome. Otherwise, tell your friend that there's a show. You can listen on a podcast or you can listen on YouTube. It's awesome. We're going to talk about the Monster Manual because it's all the rage in the news and everyone's going on and on about it. Well, I guess I'll go before that. We'll talk about Darrington Press getting into Barnes and Noble. So I thought it was interesting that as Wizards of the Coast is pulling, I guess that maybe that's not their plan anymore. There was a big thing where they were like not going to support brick and mortar stores for a while. And I think some contract they had, they might not be in Barnes and Noble. And they might not be in some of these bookstores. And I know Amazon dominates everything, so I have no idea how it's going to react in the future. But I thought it was interesting that where Wizards of the Coast is like, yeah, we're going to take those RPG books out. Critical Role is going to put them in. So as you're like running around, you're like, oh, what is this Critical Role, the board or the board game, Critical Role, the RPG? What is this all about? So Daggerheart's going to be kind of in these stores. And I think just, I don't know, people seeing them and stuff. I wonder if this will help foster the creativity or foster the popularity of Critical Role's Daggerheart. I watched a little bit of a videos on it. That and Flea Mortals, I'm just not sold on yet. And I think it's complexity. I'm sure they're both going to be fun games. But on the one hand, I'm already feeling that D&D 2025 or 2024 is complex. More complex than what I'm used to, which was already pretty complex with like 2015 D&D. And now I'm like, in order to play Daggerheart, I'm like, I need these cards, I need all this other stuff. And one of my players was the best reaction, where he was like, yeah, I was looking at it, and after like a little bit, they started throwing down more cards and stuff. He's like, I'm out. I just don't want to. No, not for me. Like, this is, it's more than dice, more than character sheet. I'm a little like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I know that there was a new Draw Steel. That's what I'm thinking of. MCDM's naming conventions. There we go. So Draw Steel, they had a big design thing, and I think it's going to be a very well-designed game and things like that. But at the same time, it feels, I guess, more crunchy than what I want out of a RPG. And there's that fine line between like more story or more tactical battle. And then on the other side of that tactical battle window is war miniature games. And I'm a big fan of Gundam, and Gundam is coming out with like a 40K style or like a Warhammer style like miniature war game that I'm like, okay, I could get into this because I really like Gundam. I might give it a try. I would much rather do that because it's like dedicated to miniature wargaming. I don't have to think about the roleplay aspect than to dive into something like Daggerheart. But we'll see. I could be proved wrong. Obviously, I need to play it. I need to read it. I do like the idea of being a frog person. That's high on my list of things I want in my life. So in the last week, Wizards of the Coast has been releasing these preview videos on the Monster Manual. And they did one where they kind of just talked about the Monster Manual. And they did another one where they excessively talked about dragons. And I found both of them not very helpful as to like what is different. Because it's like, well, which monsters are different? And Jeremy Crawford says, all of them. Everything's been touched. Everything's been changed. I'm like, okay, great. How? In good, better ways. Okay, how? Like, what have you done? Well, don't worry, it's still 5th edition. Okay, yeah, you've said that before, I believe you. I kind of want to know what's going on. And it's interesting because Todd Kenrick knows how to do interviews, and he is asking leading questions. And so it seems like it's from my perspective of his interviews, they're very much like, let me set you up with this slam dunk. Oh, that was great. Let's all chuckle about it. Ha 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 ha. All right, man. We all love D&D, don't we? Right? Give us money. And I don't like that. I think it would be better if they got to ask questions to other, I don't know, reporters or things like that. Like people who would like a legit, like, let's ask you questions. Like what can you talk about? What are you excited about? Rather than just like, how can we, I don't know, fan the fires of popularity with the Monster Manual? My overall takeaways are less is more, I guess, and that the monsters hit harder. So if we go with that, we have normally the Monster Manual or the past Monster Manuals have had like 300 monsters. This one has 500, but the stat blocks are supposed to be more concise. They've added extra lore, extra ways to utilize monsters, all this other stuff. And this is what they're promoting, and they're like, you know, shouting out to the world like, hey, this is what it's going to be. And I am wondering, like, what is the in new art? And I'm like, okay, so what is the page count and the font size here? Because you're saying that you're giving us so much, but the more I listen to this, I'm like, I don't know. Like, it feels like you're taking away a lot. Like, I loved the Mordenkainen's Monster Tome and Volo's Guide to Monsters, whatever the Mordenkainen was, Monsters of the Multiverse, I think. They had so many pages that were just like, here's the history of devils. Here's the history of the Eladrin. And I don't think that we'll get that with this Monster Manual. But then again, it's not supposed to be kind of a dedicated lore monster book. It's just like Bigby's Guide, Bigby's Monstrous Giant Book of Fun. They want this to be just like the core book. So in that respect, now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. I don't know. We'll see. But with that, I put some links down below. D4 D&D Deep Dive. Lots of Ds. He did a monster video preview. The Dungeon Dudes were also allowed to do a preview, and Dungeon Dad did a preview. So lots of D. Maybe I should have had a silent D in my name, and then or I should be named like Dordan, and then I would D&D Dordan, and then Wizards would have paid attention to me. Not that I'm bitter. So he actually, I went to his video this morning and I watched it, and then I cut these little snippets out because I wanted to look at them with you guys. So, can I view here? Oh, yeah, that's not what I want to do. That's no good. Let's do this. View full screen. Here we go. So this is the Empyrean. It is a CR23 Celestial Titan that is in the 2014 monster book as well. So I don't have any pictures to show you other than what I recorded from the screen, but I don't know, and I haven't really dug into this a whole bunch, but at like a first glance, I'm like, okay, it looks relatively the same. The initiative being plus 19 on the 2025 side is a little odd, but like if you really wanted it to go first, I would just say this monster will always go first in initiative and can't be surprised or something. And but you put a number on it, all of a sudden it's like, well, I want to be able to have a higher initiative. I don't know. It's like they said they've never statted the Lady of Pain because they don't want people to be able to kill the Lady of Pain, because the minute that you stat something is the minute that it has a mathematical barrier that can be overcome. So it's the same CR, which I'm still confused how CR is supposed to work in 2025. And I thought that the Dungeon Master's Guide would explain CR a little bit more. I'm hoping the Monster Manual does, but then again, it's got all these new monsters, so we'll see. The new one has increased legendary resistance and has magic resistance on top of that. This is a better one, but the text is a little bit smaller just because of the nature of the, oh, maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, and I can move it around. Okay, so it's got a multi-attack. It's got Sacred Weapon, which is just like extra force damage, and then the target is stunned. Divine Ray, and then it can cast spells. And this was something that I thought we were getting away from with Monsters of the Multiverse, is that monsters have these abilities like Fireball, but it's not going to be called Fireball because we want to be able to like read it in the stat block. And this is something that's bothering me. Not so much online because I can hover over the spell or I can click it, but when I'm running out of the book, to have like 4 monsters from 2 different books and the player's handbook open so that I can go and look up what Greater Restoration does and decide if I want to use it right then and there. Monsters with spell slots just take extra time. But I will say that these spell slots don't really feel like they are attacks. So maybe that's something just like background stuff. And then legendary actions. And if we go over here, this guy has, how many legendary actions do we say? 4. And this person only has 3 legendary actions. But yeah, I mean, there's minor tweaks to the damage, but everything seems pretty similar. You get 50,000 XP for this, and you get 32,000 XP for this one. I don't know. Thoughts? Questions, comments, concerns? So, I did start the Animal Lords monster video. They don't show any stat blocks, so I kind of was like, oh. And then Dungeon Dad does show stat blocks, but he's really sneaky about it. D&D, or D4 was the only one who really like went through and was like, here are all of the stat blocks. Side by side, which props to him because now I have stuff to show you. So links to those videos down below if you're interested. Another thing that is interesting is that we will have male and female medusas, hags, dryads. A lot of like female only monsters or male only monsters are now getting a counterpart. And I think in the latest Eberron book that is on the DM's Guild by Keith Baker has male and female medusas because you can play as a medusa. Like that's a player character race in that setting. And Gnolls were a player character race earlier, but that's kind of been retconned because of their fiend background, which is going into things. So kind of cool. I mean, back in the day, there wasn't the Isle of Medusas. There was just the one Medusa. It was like a powerful creature. It was a singular in itself, its own monstrous thing because of something that happened to it. And D&D borrowed all of those cultural monsters from lore and mythology and incorporated them into Dungeons and Dragons. So it makes sense that they're like, well, let's just expand it and do this. So male hags, male dryads, male medusas, and female satyrs. I think it was satyrs were always male before, and they're doing others. And there's probably more that they're doing that we're not talking about. So cool. Props to it. I mean, like, that is not something that alters the game. Something I think is cool. Why not? And then we have Gnolls are now fiends. Kobolds are now dragons, which I'm trying to think of what kobolds were before. They were just goblinoids. And goblins are going to be fae. And I thought that was kind of interesting. They're really leaning into this like red hat kind of goblin fae thing. And I don't know, that really changes things for me in a Forgotten Realms kind of sense where goblins are just like the weird, like icky goblin creatures that are living underground. And now it's like, oh, they all came from the Feywild like elves. I don't know. So the lore there is changing a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, but my game, I can do whatever I want still. And then somebody, I think I was listening to another podcast and they were saying, I wonder if Wizards made Gnolls fiends so that we don't feel so bad about slaughtering them, or that it matches their bloodlust. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, but I don't think they're thinking that far ahead, because then why are goblins fey if goblins are also kind of like bloodthirsty and attacky? But maybe that's just my things. And then kobolds have been cemented as like, you know, working for dragons. I think it makes sense to just make them a dragon. So it'll be interesting to play around with spells that can target only like this one doesn't target fey or this one doesn't target that, because now you're going to have these character types that are, you know, dragon, goblinoid, things like that. So then it got me thinking. So in the interview, they said, hey, why did you make the monster manual come out last? And Jeremy Crawford gave some answer of like, you know, it was a lot of work to do the player's handbook and the dungeon master's guide. And this was just like dessert, because we all love working on monster books. They're so great. The monsters are going to be so fun and blah, blah, blah. We saved the best for last. And that's a very corporate answer to be like, you should be the most excited about this thing, even though when the player's handbook was coming out, they wanted you to be the most excited about the player's handbook. I was thinking, I really wish this is the order I want them to release it. So what makes sense is that you release the player's handbook, the monster manual, and then the dungeon master's guide. Why does that make sense? I think it's because that's how it's always been done. Just out of like, I don't know, you need the first 2 books to actually play the game, and you need the last book to kind of help you out. But with the last Dungeon Master's Guide that came out, it has a lot of good information on building campaigns and setting it up, and like how to get dungeon masters excited to run games and play. And so I think the ideal way of, especially if your edition is backwards compatible, which this one supposedly is, I think the ideal way to do this is to say, we're going to release the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's going to highlight all the ways you can make great games and all these things and incorporate all this wonderful stuff. Then we're going to incorporate the monster manual. And the monster manual is going to give you new monsters to fight and new abilities for these monsters. How are you going to handle them? What's going to happen? Da-da-da-da-da. Then you release the player's handbook, because now your DMs have had like maybe close to a year to either play with these monsters in the 2014 rules, but also to just like, let's play around and craft and things like that, and then release the player's handbook. And then I think that gives you more time to balance those player abilities, and more time to balance them and see them in actual play with people and things like that. Like, wow, is that weapon, that magic item that we released, is that really broken? Well, it is with a 2014 character, but it's not with a 2024 character. So maybe we say something when the new book comes out saying, by the way, magic items are not intended for the 2014 characters, et cetera, et cetera. So that seems weird to be like DMG should be first, but I really think the best distribution the best would be all 3 books at the same time, and we can just pick it up and go. But that being said, if you're going to do a staggered release, my opinion is Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, Player's Handbook. Like, the players don't need the book early. They can't play. Hamster of Doom asks, I wonder how these compare to the Monstrous Menagerie from A5e. That's Advanced 5e. And I don't know. That's another question. I think maybe when a lot of these come out, we just kind of compare monsters, you know? I got a sense of listening to these monster videos with Jeremy Crawford and the other designer that it felt a lot like Flea Mortals, where it's like, well, we've got our goblin and we've got like our goblin chief and we've got this. And so you kind of like, you have a goblin, but you extrapolate it into these different types of goblins. And then all the different goblins work together to more or less confuse the dungeon master in my point of view. But yeah, I don't know. Like I haven't read Advanced 5e, but it would be interesting. I still really loved Kobold Press's monster books over the original, over the Wizards of the Coast monster books, because the Kobold Press monster books just hit hard and they had like oomph to them. And maybe that's because Kobold Press wants you to, they were treating it like a role-playing game and trying to make players scared and what have you. But also, some people were mentioning that like Wizards of the Coast doesn't want your character to die. They actually don't want your character to ever be in danger of dying, because if you TPK a party, you stop playing D&D and then you go do something else. And that, I was like, I wonder how often that happens, but you're right. Like, I mean, parties fizzle out for a lot of times, but if you're just like, well, I died, I'm kind of not feeling it coming back. I wanted to be done for a while, but I was sticking it out to kind of see things, but my character's dead now, so I don't really care. So I think I'm going to go kick a football around or something. I don't know. There you go. So all of this monster talk is coming out. And then speaking of monster talk, Goodman Games has released the PDF for Dungeon Denizens. And and now Monster Vault 2 is out. I forgot about that. That's another one. So Dungeon Denizens is their 500 plus monsters for DCC and 5e. This is from Goodman Games. And they reached out to me a long time ago, and they were like, hey, we're going to do a monster book, we think. Do you want to submit a monster? And I said, yes, I do. That sounds like way fun. And I was, at the time, I was playing around with the idea of reactions a lot. I really want a class in 5e that is, that utilizes reactions in a new way. And so when I was writing a class, it was called the Mimic or the Mime. Inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy V. And the idea is that when somebody uses an ability, I could use my reaction and spend some mimic points to mirror it. So if somebody casts a 3rd level spell, I could use my reaction to mirror that and also cast that spell. And then I have my regular like attack and bonus action. But those are not my bread and butter. My bread and butter are really like utilizing my reaction that I have once per round to be like, you did something awesome, I'm going to mimic it, and I'm going to do this. So with that in mind, when they came to me and they were like, hey, you should make a monster, I said, I would love to make a monster. I know that you're just hypothetically cashing in on my popularity, but hey, it's working. I'm talking about Dungeon Denizens. So they sent the PDF out, and I got the DCC version PDF because I was a backer. I submitted. I'm probably going to get a free book. I didn't even think about this. I was just like, yeah, I want a monster book for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm going to buy this. So I totally backed it. But you can see here that I am a guest designer right here for the Unicorg. And also World Builder Bob and Professor Dungeon Master, and James Wallace, who is Judge James, who's a fan of the show. Apparently they spelled his name wrong, and I think they spelled the monster wrong as well. So, and they also, there was a little snafu up here of designers instead of designers. So some typos, but you know, it's new. It's a new thing. They're figuring it out, I guess. I don't know. I can't read or write. So let's look at, so the Unicorg is based off of the reaction. And the idea was, from my perspective, is that it's a fey corgi. And if you catch the corgi, you can get a wish granted or some kind of like benefit. Like it's like a game of chase. Like dogs are like, oh, you're going to get me? You're going to chase? You're going to run back and forth? Like I was thinking of our corgi, and he's just like, oh yeah. Oh, I'm playing with you. Oh, you can't catch me. I'm really fast. So whenever you actually grab the corgi, they will use their reaction to like teleport away, was kind of the idea. So I thought maybe we could look at this. And it's under U because it's Unicorg. So here's the Unicorg in all of its Unicorg glory. So the... I want to get rid of that, and I want to make this a little bigger. So, and then granted, this is the DCC version. The 5e version will probably be a bit more complex. So, but this is unicorns love a good game of chase and frequently challenge good-natured creatures to a friendly contest of speed. The competitors have 1d4 rounds to grapple the Unicorg. If the Unicorg is not grappled at the end of that time period, the Unicorg wins. The Unicorg always uses its fairy step during these chases. If the Unicorg loses, it may share important information or grant a small boon, such as a spell or a celestial charm. See the sidebar. If harmful or controlling magic was used during the game of chase, the Unicorg declines to grant the prize. So it is just like, can I grab you? So they replaced they're, instead of a reaction, I think they just have these like fairy steps that they can take. So when they would be hit by an attack, they can teleport 30 feet away. And then they can, they have keen senses. And yeah, so the idea also is that fairies used to use corgis as their steeds because they could grab onto the back fur really well and they would run around on them. So I think this is fun. And then you have these celestial blessings of like your movement increases by 10 feet, or you restore 1d3 points of ability score loss. Or what is this one? The charm allows the recipient to ignore bonds. See, my version, I just wanted a wish. They changed these monsters pretty heavily from like what you actually submitted. But yeah, I thought it was fun. So that's my boy, my Unicorg. I love him. I think it's so funny. Pretty excited about all of this. And then I was trying to think, Bob's is something else. I forget. But yeah. There were a couple more that were floating around over here. Anyway, so the art looks fun. It looks very DCC. I haven't actually read through anything other than what I did. But I think as far as a monster book for DCC, this will be my monster manual. And I'm excited to use it. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. So the 5e version and the 5e print, the 5e PDF has got to also be done because I only backed this one, so I'm assuming the 5e run is done as well. So whenever I get that, we can look at both stat blocks and kind of figure out how's it going. I feel like my camera is not cooperating today, so maybe be a little more center. Yeah, so if you're interested in Dungeon Denizens, this is not a sponsored promo or anything. I don't even have an affiliate link, but there is, you can go check it out, either on their website at some point, or the link below will take you to the Kickstarter, and I'm sure they will happily take your money if you want to. And then while I was perusing Goodman Games, I found this website that I believe Lana put together. Lana? Yeah, I played a game with her. She's really fun. She works for Goodman Games. So shout out to you. You're awesome. So this is every Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure. Now, Dungeon Crawl Classics was made for 3rd edition before they invented the system Dungeon Crawl Classics. So DCC now is based off of 3rd edition. I don't know how backwards compatible these would be, but it's kind of fun. So they put a list together of every game in order. And I just thought it was fun to kind of look at some of these covers and stuff. So they have a lot of them. I think they've reprinted a few of these earlier ones into Dungeon Crawl Classics, the RPG. But it doesn't hit until you get to 60. So these ones here, these are their 4th edition era, I believe. And sorry for the people that are listening at home and can't actually see my screen right now. But then we get all the way to 66.5, Doom of the Savage Kings, which is the first Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure. And then Sailors of the Starless Sea, People of the Pit, Emerald Enchanter, Jewels of the Carnifex. These are all pretty classics just because of how old they are and people know. I recently picked up the Sea Queen Escapes. I need to read through that one. Seems pretty good, but it's really fun. So yeah, Fate's Fell Hand, also a cool adventure. Frozen in Time is a classic. I love it. We'll get to a little bit later, but I just played through Glipcario's Gambit, which is about a wizard that has a cat head. The One Who Watches from Below is one of my favorite. And then we get into these larger ones like The Chain Coffin and Perils of the Purple Planet. Yeah, Hole in the Sky, also a favorite of mine. Lots of fun DCC adventures. I've heard the 998th Conclave of Wizards is actually a really good adventure. I believe Lex Mandrake recommended that to me, so I have that one, but I haven't thoroughly gone through it yet. But yeah, they've made lots of stuff. Lots of really great stuff. So this is kind of fun, all the way to DCC 100 music. And I ran the Queen of Elfland's Son. I liked that one. And I have not read Return to the Starless Sea yet, but that is something that is on my list. We're currently up to 107, and that's not if you're counting Oh, and what are these? So we have the Lankmar Adventures, tomes 1 and 2, and then the Purple Planet is tomes 4. And then we have DCC Dying Earth, which they've made quite a bit of stuff for. Well, at least 10. And Lankmar got a lot of love with making 15 adventures. DCC Empire of the East, which is my least favorite setting that they've made, to the point where I might return the book. I hear they're revising it, but it just was not for me. And I not return the book, but like I'll sell the book or something because I'm like, I'm just never going to use this, I think. And then the DCC Horror franchise, which I don't think lasted very long. And then Adventures, Free RPG Day, and DCC Holiday Adventures. I do recommend the Doom That Came to Christmastown. I think I have a video on this channel all about it. And I also have run The Old Gods Return, which is another fun one. And then MCC. So like, if you want content for your RPG, there's a lot here. So I thought that was a fun website. I'll put the link down below just to kind of go look at everything that's there. It's pretty neat. Invisible Sun. Those of you who know me, who have been watching the channel for a long time, probably have heard me talk about Invisible Sun. There was an interview, not an interview. There was a question that was asked at a live game that I was at once. And we were streaming. This was a long time ago. So there's a record of it out there somewhere, but somebody asked in chat, what is your favorite RPG that you never get to play? And I just remember somebody said, Shadow Dark. Because like Shadow Dark is like on paper, like in concept, it's the game I want to play more than anything else. But in actual gameplay, it doesn't work. And I can't find the people who want to synergize and make it happen with me. And so there's this idea of like, in theory, this is the best game made for Jordan ever. But in practicality, in actuality, it is not. Funny, Invisible Sun is that game for me. And it is funny that when you play Invisible Sun, you leave behind the world and go to the actuality. But in actuality, I don't know if Invisible Sun is ever going to be a game that I get to play consistently. Or have people who are invested in it as much as I am. So all of this being said, there is currently a Humble Bundle right now, and you can get, I think, every book and every expansion except for the newest stuff that they're putting out, which is not come out yet. But $18 for 10 PDFs is amazing. So you get the full Invisible Sun PDFs, Secrets of Silent Streets, and this is an affiliate link if you use it down below, but like, I'm just excited and blown away by how big this module or this bundle actually is. So Secrets of Silent Streets is a setting book for the city of Satyrine that is kind of your base of operations when you go to the actuality. Tetraology is basically the monster book for the different types of suns that you can visit and the monsters that are there. The Threshold is actually a piece of fiction that is set in Satyrine and the events that happen in Satyrine, and it's a whole dungeon that you can explore that you kind of watch through. You read through this character going through this dungeon and experiencing it. And then when you're done reading this, it's like, here's how you can also have your players run through it. Now that you've experienced, you can bring other people to it. There's a really creative way of doing this where it's like, it's a piece of fiction, but it actually is a game supplement in that when you're done reading, you can implement this dungeon. And I thought that was really cool. Book M is a bunch of secret and extra spells. The night side is the spells in reverse. So spells that cure, they harm. It's kind of like the evil person's book. And then there are these crafting kits, and the in Chiriodon of the Path is kind of also like a book that is a in-world book, I guess, that you can use. And hello, PBR Street Gang, welcome to our live stream. So this is a lot for $18, like a lot in my opinion. And I was blown away because originally just the 4 books of Invisible Sun and the playing cards and all that other stuff was like $100. And then you're adding on all of these. Now they're not physical books, but they are like, they're the PDFs. It's really cool. So I kind of wanted to look at some of these because I was like, man, now I'm thinking about Invisible Sun again. I want to play Invisible Sun. I just have such a fondness for this game. I think Monty Cook makes his worlds, whoa, something's going on. So Monty Cook, his worlds are, they just synergize with my brain, I guess. Like Numenera, I was like, yeah, I like this. Like I'm on board a whole bunch. I read through Tolis and I'm like, this is great. I love this setting. Like, I think it's so cool. And then, Invisible Sun, I'm like, yeah, like I'm there. I think this is one of the coolest. I want more stories in this world, but I have not had a chance to see them. That's why I liked The Threshold so much, because it was just like fiction. I'm like, man, people, you got to write some fan fiction or something about Invisible Sun so I could like read it and just enjoy the game that I'll never get to play. If you're a lore nut like me, if you like Planescape, you will probably like Invisible Sun because it has a lot of Planescape vibes of just like magic working in weird ways and weird creatures that are like weird to normal humans, but in the world of like Sigil, they're perfectly normal. You know, like, oh yeah, there's an angel walking down the street, perfectly normal. Same thing in Invisible Sun. You're like, oh, you've got like a person who's actually a portal to another world. Yeah, that's just Carl. He's a good guy. So the art's really fun. You kind of come through and build your character. It's very Monty Cook in that, it's very Numenera in that aspect where you're creating like a sentence and stuff like that. There's this big emphasis on the path of the suns, and each of these different quote unquote suns, there's 9 suns. Each of them are basically a different plane of existence that you can go to. And this is where it feels very Planescapey, because you can travel from one to the other. Certain suns reflect like or interact with other suns in different ways. And then all magic is set in a specific like power energy of the sun. And so if I cast a indigo spell or a spell that is of the indigo type, and I'm in the plane, the indigo sun, it's going to be more powerful than if I cast it somewhere else. That being said, like if you kind of flip cards as you're going through the game, and this energy fluctuation can change during gameplay, giving you a bonus on your turn or a boon or a bane, and you're like, oh crap, that spell is not going to work as well, kind of a thing. And it's, I don't know, it's just really interesting. I have heard mostly on Reddit that people were saying, you know, later on, the more you play Invisible Sun, it was so complex that it really does break down. People were saying that there's just certain magic items and abilities where you're like, wow, that's just, it just doesn't function how it was supposed to, and it's not very balanced. But a game like this feels more storytelling than dungeon exploration. And so to that, I'm like, yeah, I think it might have those broken elements, but you just kind of, I don't know, like you go with it. Monty Cook, I'm subscribed to a bunch of his newsletters, and he famously was saying, like, I haven't forgotten about Invisible Sun. In fact, I'm starting a new Invisible Sun game, blah, blah, blah. And that was not too long ago. And then they did that Black Cube Kickstarter reboot. So they're actively supporting it. Probably not as much as like the fans want, but they are supporting it. It's kind of cool. So there's another new book coming out pretty soon that I'm excited for that was on Kickstarter, and it should be going to the printers soon. So that'll be really fun. But yeah, if you are interested in lore, and if you like weird, then I can very much recommend Invisible Sun. So there is 4 books in the main Invisible Sun, along with a bunch of cards and stuff of magic. But yeah, like this is how a lot of all these different magical currents work together, and you can walk the path of the suns, or you can do all these different things. There are, I'm just going to gush about Invisible Sun because I think it's so cool. Lots of, there's a Vancian magic system where you have card spells, and you have a picture of a brain and you kind of put them down, and that's as many spells as you can fit into your brain for the day. So it's a very tactile, physical thing where you're putting things together. And then on top of that, you have the sorcerer or wild mage equivalent, where you basically have these like concepts of like the concept of red and the concept of travel, and you kind of combine those in weird ways that really is a conversation with the game master. And you're saying like, hey, I want to combine water and travel to summon a wave that will propel us into the next area of the city or something. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. And so you take it and you kind of play with this idea and then cast the spell and see if it goes off and how effective it is. And so if you're a player that loves to be creative like that, awesome. And then there is another player class, is the Goetic, and they summon demons and stuff. So everything's about summoning demons and getting information from devils and angels and utilizing them in different ways, or binding certain creatures in different ways. That was the one I wanted to play the most. I thought it was really cool. And then there is a maker, and makers are, you use magical energies to bind and weave things to create magic items. And then you're kind of an artificer in that standpoint, where you equip yourself with these like charged magical items. Like, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a bunch of lore videos on Invisible Sun, but at the same time, I don't know who would watch it. Like, I don't know. James and Chaz just like, I would love to know more, but I was like, I don't know who actually would watch it, but it would be really cool because it's pretty amazing. So here's the blue sun, and just like, it'll tell you all about the blue sun and how they interact with other stuff. This is the indigo sun, which is where you stay. The indigo sun is your home in Saturnine, which is up here in the corner. So really pretty. And then, I also wanted to point out, one of the books in here is also this Enchiridion, and this is not your typical game book, but this is like an in-game book that the players can utilize to find questions and ask stuff. So it kind of gives you a bunch of information on the suns, and like, here's the realm of the Silver Sun, and here's like a bunch of, here's a map of what it is. And then here's like a little travel log of somebody who was in the Silver Sun. And then like, why would you go there? And so, I don't know, I love stuff like this. Like, there's no stat blocks in this entire book. Like, this book just is information about the various suns that you can visit. So the 8 no 9 suns. Yeah. So, I mean, if you like props, if you like stuff like this at a table, that's why I feel like this game was made for me, because I love building props. I love giving stuff to people at the table. I love, I don't know, cool crinkled up maps and weird pieces of, or like ink stamps and things like that. And this game was made for that. Like, they're very much like, here, build a prop. And the prop crafting kits come with a bunch of fonts and other things, and you take them and you like plug them in and do kind of cool things like that. So I know it sounds like it was sponsored, but it's not. I just really love Invisible Sun, and I was excited to see it for $18. So, and it's going to a good charity as well. So it's affiliate link down below. You should totally check it out. I can't say for 100%, but I think this bundle is in response to giving money to the Help the Fires in the LA area. So it's like also just a really great cause. So if you have money and you are mildly curious, 100% would recommend. 10 out of 10, no notes. Except that I'll never play it. But anyway, so yeah, I love props so much. So design and inspiration, boy, I've just not been designing lately. I've been writing scripts for Greyhawk. I am currently in a show where we rehearse on Sundays. We're going to start rehearsing nightly in February. And so my mind is not in the game design space, but I was thinking about my design and inspiration section, and I'm like, a lot of these, nobody's just writing a system much anymore. And I think that's because it's hard to sell just a system. And I think about the most successful one that I've seen is Cairn. And Cairn is free. And I think that's one of the reasons that it is so, that it was able to be so successful as just an RPG. Because they're like, here's what you do, and then you can use it to play all of these other adventures, OSR, just take it and do all this stuff. But the thing is it was free, so people could just take it, they could make it their own, they could change it up, they could do all kinds of stuff. So I was thinking of, Old School Essentials as becoming Dolmenwood. Dungeon Crawl Classics doesn't really have a setting, but it does have a vibe, like it knows what kind of setting it's trying to be. And a lot of OSR material are like, hey, I've got this game, and I'm going to make it. Here's the dice system. Also, you play angsty kids in the 80s looking for Count Dracula. So I was reading through Ultraviolet Grassland 2nd edition, which is a beautiful, weird book. On par with things like Numenera, where it's like science fantasy. And I don't necessarily think that will be something I want to mimic for Modular D6, but it really got me thinking that the more I work on that system, I could have it very tight and I could have everything working in synergy super well. But if I don't have a pitch to new players to be like, and you play as slugs and you're racing home from salt monsters. I don't know, something stupid like that. Like, you have to have that pitch that's just like, oh, because otherwise I'm like, yeah, it's like every other fantasy heartbreaker RPG, and there's really no difference. And so you should play it. You should play it. So as I'm designing now, I think I'm going to emphasize on maybe incorporating my Endigar world into it a bit more, and I don't know, expand the lore there and kind of going through things like that. So, and Hamster of Doom says they're doing layout on an adventure. Yeah, it is. And it is fun. But yeah, I found layout to be the most frustrating, but I think it's because I've never done it before. And so I was like typing and I don't know, just like trying to learn new software and things like that. I was like, this is so frustrating. But I'm glad I did it once, so I have an idea of how to do it. And then once I get my game a little more polished, I'm going to go back and like fix it and make it look better and things like that. So, yeah. And Wizards and Word Slingers, I'm excited that you got here today too. So congratulations on catching the show live. Suggs fleeing a salt moss sounds epic. See, Randy's in. He's like, man, slugs, salt golems. I'm done. Please, where do I sign up? That's me interpreting you, Randy. So, as far as my games, last week I did get to play Spelljammer Academy. I'm really liking the idea of this Spelljammer. My players are all cadets. They're having fun. They're kind of solving a mystery. They're flying through space. We had our first kind of like ship combat thing. It was basically like a Star Trek holodeck simulation where they were there. They were trying to like pretend to do a mission and kind of earn points to graduate. And so they're kind of going through and being like, how well did you do? But I got to pull out my Spelljammer minis. I got to put them down on the table. I used my modified rules that I don't have linked here, but they're on the DM's Guild for free, where I basically kind of tried to... I took a lot of the 2nd edition rules that I liked about ship combat, and I adapted them to make a more robust 5e ship combat, because that was one of the things that was super missing, in my opinion, from the Spelljammer campaign setting for 5e. So I took that and I was like playing around with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, these actually work really well. Like, I remember writing these and having fun with them, so I'm going to incorporate those. We're not playing this week because I have other errands to run, but we are going to play next week. And just good people, like fun. I love playing at the table. I think there's just like a certain magic of playing at the table, and also a certain magic of not streaming, not playing for an audience. And I think that's although I am very much a person who loves to have an audience, and there is a period of time where I would like to do Dungeons & Dragons or RPGs for a stream or something like that. Overall, my preferred way of play is just like my friends at a table. I think that's the most fun. So, And then speaking of friends at a table, I got to play in a DCC game as a player, and it was epic. This was amazing. So we played, where's that DCC adventure list? We played the DCC adventure, this one here. Let's see if I can get a bigger picture of it. Yeah. So this is Galipcario's Gambit. This was an interesting adventure. I guess I'm gonna spoil it because I really want to talk about this. So this adventure is you are summoned by the Fates, and the Fates are 3 women, like the mother, maiden, crone kind of a thing, and the Fates are one of the patrons in the Dungeon Crawl Classics core book. So you can take them as a patron. I rolled up an elf because I really wanted to do an elf. And there's specifically a spell that I've always loved that the patrons have that I wanted to be able to utilize. So I rolled up an elf and I made them my patron, and they granted me this patron spell. So we show up and like all of a sudden in this adventure, the Fates are like, hey, we've chosen you. And I was like, I kid you not. I rolled this up. But like, and I didn't read the adventure ahead of time, but like my patron is the Fates. So already my elf is like super connected with the, like, we got to do what the Fates need us to do, guys. Like 100%. It has to be like, we have to do it. Let's go right now. So I was this guy that was like, come on, we got to go. And we show up and we end up fighting this weird tentacle cat-headed monster that you're seeing on screen right here. It was just so bizarre. And so we were like, oh, that's weird. And we ended up hiking up this tall mountain, solving a couple puzzles, all this other stuff. And then the final battle, we're battling this wizard and we're doing all this really cool stuff. I was able to cast my spell. And so I cast my spell, and I think it's the Blade of Atropos, and I'm able to like magically enhance a sword that I have, but I rolled high enough that a spectral sword appeared next to me. So now I'm using my, I have like a +3 to my attack and a +2 because the Fates are on my side. And so a level 2 character, DCC, like that's amazing to have a +5, like that's godlike. And then my damage for the die was a D16 plus my caster level. So I whiffed a couple times. I actually missed once, and then a second time I hit, but I rolled like 2 damage. And so I was like, oh, but I was able to like swing around, and I could envision the entire battle in my head. And I've said this before, but like 2025, I want to play more games rather than run more games. I'll always run games. Like I love running games, but I want to be able to be a player. And when we were playing, I could just see this entire thing. Like I could see my elf dude with my sword, and it got me all jazzed up. And I was like running around, slicing things, taking out cultists, doing all sorts of cool stuff. So I had so much fun. I bet, I don't know if my judge who run the game watches this show or not, but if you do, super fun. It was great to play, and I would love to play again. I think they want me to run Kids on Bikes for them at some point, which I would be happy to do. So that was awesome. DCC as a player. We have people out tomorrow again for my Dragonbane game that hasn't started yet. So we might play a board game tomorrow morning rather than starting Dragonbane. And then the following week, we might actually start Dragonbane. I'm excited for Dragonbane as well. I'm going to be a dwarf merchant, and the guy running Dragonbane is one of those people that he really loves the system. So I think it's going to be fun to play with somebody who really loves the system, you know. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's my show. 37 viewers or 35 viewers. Holy cow. We've like usually get about 10 or 15. So this is awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming out. If you want, you can leave a like, but actually just like share the episode with a friend. If you are also so inclined, I have links down below to a Substack, which has the version of this as in audio form for a podcast. So you can go there, grab the RSS feed if you want to add it to your podcasting software. Or you can listen on YouTube. Because they offer podcasty things as well, and I have this entire show is linked up as a podcast. But yeah, and again, thank you guys so much for watching, but also for supporting, for becoming members, and for chatting with me. Really excited to see the usuals here, so it was fun to see you guys. Baron Grimm, Hamster of Doom, James, and yeah, Wizards and Word Singers, I'm glad you got to be able to check it out. So, yeah, and you guys are awesome. So I really appreciate you coming out and watching. I'll be back next week talking about stuff. Hopefully we'll have more Monster Manual things to chat about. I think that'll be really cool. But until then, keep playing games and stay awesome. Take care, everybody.